See more innovation in packaging and processing than anywhere else at PACK EXPO International. It's the show that defines where the industry is headed with the solutions that establish where your business can go. Discover state-of-the-art packaging technology, processing equipment, new materials, sustainable solutions, supply chain resources, and much, much more. You'll walk away with innovative solutions to challenges big and small. Register at packexpointernational.com. So with all the fancy introductions out of the way, welcome to our podcast, Meaghan.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. Thanks for having me. I'm excited for the conversation.
The pleasure is all ours. One common theme that I saw when I was checking out your mavens in manufacturing, one of the common themes with many of the women that you talk with is that they didn't originally plan on a manufacturing career. And I feel like I hear that kind of across manufacturing, but again, in particular with women. So what patterns do you notice in how women find manufacturing or discover the industry? Like what sort of ways have you discovered as a theme that for them to find it out?
Yeah, so a lot of them have the same theme that I do, where I accidentally fell into it. So I never imagined being an industrial tech writer for the space. It wasn't something that I learned about until much later on in my college career. I just was always good at English, and I was encouraged to either be a teacher or do something in marketing.
Hmm.
And when I got to college in Milwaukee, that's where I learned about tech writing. And so I took an introduction course and just happened to fall in love with it. Even at that point, I didn't truly understand the capacity of what was involved in technical writing or where it would lead me in my career journey. So it was like a nonstop discovery journey. And I hear that a lot among my guests where they started out in a completely different industry and then learned that they had a skill set that they could apply either in engineering and manufacturing. So they just accidentally fell into it.
Okay.
Another pattern is some women had either their dad or their mom in the space and they just ended up following in their footsteps.
Makes sense,
Or
right?
if they were in high school and they had a teacher or a mentor or a coach that really they saw that they were good either at math or science. So they encouraged them in high school to maybe pursue something in engineering. One of the mavens that I've had on, her name is Cara Branch. She is the founder of Black Girls Do Engineer. And she didn't find out about engineering opportunities until she was in college as well. And
Okay.
it just took someone to notice that she was really good at math and had other skill sets that could be applied to engineering. So they encouraged her to maybe take some engineering courses, and she ended up being a chemical engineer before founding Black Girls Do Engineer. So I think those are the most common themes. I'm starting to see a little bit of a shift, especially among younger generations, where they're hearing about these opportunities and they're starting to pursue them on purpose. But we still have a long way to go, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know there's a workforce kind of issue that's above all of this, that we don't have enough people in manufacturing in the workforce. And I
Mhm.
do start to hear that like incrementally the younger generation is starting to get exposed to it much sooner, which is obviously the goal. It's a pretty wonderful career if you set your mind and get involved in it. So it is good to
Yeah.
hear that you're saying that they are starting early. And it's funny that you said from a college perspective, like my background is journalism and I ended up writing for a packaging and processing magazine and had no idea about manufacturing. I didn't even know they existed. And it's the same kind of thing. So it's interesting how we're not aware this exists, but we end up in this world.
Yeah, and it's fun too. And I think with you being a journalist, maybe this is something you can agree with, but manufacturers are not really good at sharing their stories. And
No.
engineers, I found, are terrible writers. But there's this technical style of writing where everything needs to be more direct and kind of compounded and concise, where the creative style of writing, you need to appeal to the senses. So now we're seeing a combination of those two types of writing sets. And it's really
Exactly.
exciting, I think. So it's a great time to be a writer in engineering and
Yeah. Yeah,
manufacturing.
it is. It's neat. So piggybacking off of what you said, interest doesn't seem to be the issue, but it's more of a kind of an awareness that this exists, these opportunities exist. So where do you see the biggest gaps in how manufacturing careers are introduced to young women, and who do you think needs to get involved earlier in the process to expose them a little bit better?
I think the biggest gap is when girls are younger and they're curious about everything. So I think when kids are kids, they just have a natural curiosity towards how things work. But stereotypically, the types of play that girls are introduced to at a young age involve like dolls and dress
Yep.
up and playing house and cooking, whereas boys stereotypically are encouraged to play with blocks or do games that involve construction and some type of visual spacing. So I think there's this intent now where we're trying to introduce that engineering, building, hands-on type of play to everyone. And there's a few examples that come to mind. So like Legos introduced the pink and purple blocks. And then there's a lady, Debbie Sterling, who created Goldie Blocks. So she
Okay.
was an engineering student, I believe, at Stanford, and she noticed that she struggled with the spatial recognition part of engineering. And it's because she never grew up playing with blocks. And when you're doing games like Tetris or Minecraft, you're
Right.
tapping into that skill set. So she decided to combine reading, which was something younger girls seem to enjoy more as playtime. And she combined that with a block system. So as these younger girls were reading a story, they were also building something to go along with the story. And now that has developed into a cartoon series, and they actually have other boxes available that tap into that spatial recognition. And even Barbie, like they're creating dolls now that are more STEM focused, like doctors or
Right.
engineers or even robotics. So I feel like there is this shift now on how do we introduce all types of play to younger girls and not just younger boys. So that curiosity is nurtured as they're growing up, because there's been a mix of studies where younger girls start to lose interest in math and science. Some say as young as 6, but a lot of them are saying between the ages of 11 and 15. So
Mhm.
how do we nurture that curiosity up until they get into high school and even
Right.
afterward? Then comes down to whose responsibility is it. I find that a lot can start at home, but parents who don't know what's out there also need help in getting
True.
educated about the opportunities. So then who is responsible for educating the parents? And you can take a look at teachers, but teachers at all levels, whether it's elementary, middle, or high school, they can only do so much with the budget and the time and the
Mhm.
resources that they have as well. And that includes guidance counselors as well, too. So my guidance counselor, because I tested so well in English, they were always encouraging me career paths that were heavy on the English and not so much on math and science. And
Right.
even when I tried to sign up for things like wood tech or engineering elective classes, they were telling me, "Well, that's not gonna help with your college career or advancement, so you should really focus on these AP classes." So, I
Right.
was highly discouraged not to take classes like that and encouraged to take AP classes. So, again, I think it's the manufacturers themselves who need to take on a huge chunk of that responsibility, where they're connecting with their local educational institutions so that not only they're educating the guidance counselors, but also the teachers. I believe that they can go beyond that and open up their facility doors and invite their community to come in and take tours of their facilities and actually show them the types of engineering and manufacturing they're doing. I think that they can join PTO meetings and school board meetings
Mhm.
and be part of that curriculum conversation that is so much needed. And there's a gentleman here in Wisconsin. His name is Matt Goosey. He actually invited high school teachers to come to his facility and learn how he's creating components using CNC machining so that they can actually
Wow.
take what they learn at his facility and go back and apply it to what they're teaching in the schools. A huge chunk of it, too, I believe, lands on women ourselves. If we want more women to come into this space, then we need to be okay sharing our own stories and sharing our experiences. So I believe that manufacturers, if they have women in their space, see if any of them will volunteer as their spokesperson and be able to mentor that next generation, because seeing is believing. And I think representation is a
Absolutely.
huge component of that. We definitely need more women sharing their stories and speaking out and reaching out to younger girls and mentoring them and supporting them in their school journey so that we can continue to nurture that curiosity and hopefully bring them in when it comes time for them to work.
That's a great point. Once women get into a career in manufacturing, what kind of sort of signals or support can help them feel like they belong, feel like this is a place for them? And you touched on it with having mentors, seeing women represented in the industry in and of itself is a signal to them that you can do this. Are there any other ones that you can think of in the first couple years that can help young women?
Yeah, so there was a huge push during our last administration for DEI, but I think belonging isn't just created by a welcome packet or a DEI slide in onboarding. I think it shows up in the small everyday moments. So Who are you inviting in your conversations regarding business strategy? Whose questions are you taking seriously as a manufacturing leader? Are you only allowing men to ask questions, or are you allowing women to feel safe to ask questions too? Because I know everybody is, what if it's a dumb question? Everybody should be able to feel safe
Right.
and say if they don't know something. So are you allowing that to happen? And are you making it a safe enough environment for people to admit if they know something or not know something? I know for me personally, this has happened for me, but it's also happened to some other women that I've talked to within their first years of getting onboarded. They're seeing if there's opportunities for them to get mentored, or are they getting micromanaged? If they're making mistakes, are they getting treated like, okay, that's a learning moment for you?
Sure.
Or are they getting treated as that's a character flaw within them? Are leaders investing time in explaining to them the why of the mission of the business, or do they assume that their employees already know? And I think those answers to those questions are really going to determine if someone decides to stay in a company or if they decide to go somewhere else and politely just exit. It's all about empowering your employees to be leaders themselves, and I think there's ways for that to happen. So, one big thing is access to information and resources. Are
Mhm.
there opportunities for your employees to continue expanding on the skills that they already have? Can they climb up the ladder? And are you sharing that information with them? So, if you're giving them opportunities to empower them to take responsibility and accountability and ownership for what they're responsible for, I think that's a huge signal to employees. Yeah, this company really cares about me and my
Right.
career growth. So I'm going to stay here and invest my time in them because they're investing in me. So I think those are just a few ways. And honestly, too, I think respect is a huge thing. I've worked with companies, one in particular comes to mind, where I was part of the marketing department and I had my daughter at home. I was a single mom,
Mhm.
and they got to a point of micromanaging where they expected everybody in the marketing department to have these folders and hand them in at the end of each day. And it tracked all of the projects we worked on within that day and the time we took on each project. And the
Yikes.
VP of marketing came in and he pulled my folder, and like I was on my way out the door because it was
Right.
5 o'clock. So I was about to go
Mhm.
home. He literally kept me 2 hours later and drew a diagram of what a blog post looked like. Mind you, I have a master's degree in professional and technical writing.
You got some mansplaining.
Yeah, and by the time he was done explaining to me what a blog post looked like and the parts of a blog post, he basically said, "Megan, you can go home now and take care of your daughter." And I was like,
Yeah.
cool. And I'm not the only one who's had those types of experiences. You don't want to end up in that type of work culture. You definitely want to be made to feel like you're part of the whole purpose, the whole mission of the company, and not just
Right.
another number doing its time just to collect a paycheck.
Yeah. So that's like a major mindset that sort of has to change or needs to be
Yeah.
tweaked a bit in manufacturing.
For sure,
Yeah.
absolutely. I feel like there's definitely a mindset change because manufacturing initially, it's been around for centuries, right? I think around World War II, we
Right.
represented like 42%. So we were always encouraged to do other types of careers and not manufacturing and engineering. So it's not really been a system built for us. So how can we change that to be more accepting of women coming in and pursuing some of these leadership positions, even because right now I think we're 1 in 4 in mid-management level positions and then only 13% in CEO. I might have those statistics reversed, but we're not represented well in leadership positions either. So it's hard for younger generations to believe that they can excel and get past that first rung of promotion if they don't
Right.
see themselves in those leadership positions. So what can we do to make those more available and approachable for younger generations?
Yeah, and it seems like common sense, but as you're saying it, you're right. I don't think that number's off that you're saying. I think it is 10% of
Yeah,
CEOs or
it's like
something like that are women.
one in
It's
four. Yeah, 1 in 4. So Deloitte is the one that I usually look to in terms
right.
of numbers, and the Manufacturing Institute, the other resource that I look into for those types of statistics.
Yeah, both very good. This was wonderful. I could talk to you all day. This was very easy and you put a lot out there in a short
Thank
amount of
you.
time. I never thought of like I have a teenage daughter and like I would never associate Minecraft Minecraft as being something from a like building standpoint that is a good thing. You know what? It was just a video game you shouldn't be doing. But as you're explaining it, like it is, it's like playing with blocks. It's learning how,
Yeah.
like you said, spatial awareness and stuff like that. So yeah, I can have something to take away from this as well.
Yeah.
So again, I just want to thank you, Megan, for coming on here and giving our audience a few tips on how we can make this more welcoming for women in manufacturing.
Yeah. Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.